This is the Recreation Working Group annual monthly meeting. Many thanks to Perry Thomas and her Funding Water Trails group for their work on the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan overview. Enjoy the meeting.
So I joined late.
Who are you and what's your tributary to the Ohio River?
I'm Bridget Taylor. I'm an environmental scientist at OSANCO. I run the bi-monthly water quality sampling program. I guess the Little Miami is my tributary to the Ohio River.
All right, Risa.
Hi, Risa Shimoda with the River Management Society, and I don't really live on a tributary of the Ohio River, but I'll adopt one. I'd be happy to adopt one if assigned.
We welcome guests. Trish.
Hi, Trish Howison in Pittsburgh. So I have the Allegheny and the Monongahela that start the Ohio.
All right, and Austin.
Hi, Austin Rinder. I'm in Jeffersonville, Indiana. I'm just a couple blocks off the Ohio and kind of equidistant between 14 Mile Creek and Silver.
All right, Daniel Cleaves.
Hi, my name's Daniel. I am an aquatic biologist with Orsenco. My nearest tributary is in my front yard. It is Maple Creek. It's a small trib in the upper end of Markland Pool.
All right, Harry Stone.
Hi, Harry Stone with Orba. I'm on the Cooper Creek that flows into the Mill Creek that flows into the Ohio.
All right, and Perry Thomas.
I'm Perry Thomas, an environmental scientist with the Kentucky Division of Water, and I live in the Kentucky River Basin.
All right, and Russell Clark.
Russell Clark, I'm with the National Park Service River Trails Conservationist Program, located in Bowling Green, Kentucky. My tributary would be the Barron River, which drains into the Green River, which drains into the Ohio River.
All right, and Lisa Freeman. We're going to hear a little bit more about Lisa in a minute, but go ahead, Lisa.
I'm with the Corps of Engineers, sitting in for Mark Klimaszewski at this point. I guess I'm most familiar with the Salt River watershed.
All right, and Renee, you just joined us.
Hi, yeah, this is my first meeting. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Renee Dolney, and I am the director of the Chalfant Run, Thompson Run Watershed Association, which is in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, in the eastern suburbs of Pittsburgh in Allegheny County. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, why, thank you and welcome. The agenda is pretty packed today.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me?
Oh, Brewster, sorry, Brewster. I didn't see you bicycling. Go ahead, Brewster.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, I'm Brewster Rhodes. I'm the Ohio co-chair of the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and I'm also on the board of Adventure Crew. And when I'm in Cincinnati, which I'm not right now, obviously, I live part-time on the Ohio, just downstream from Little Miami in a houseboat.
And
so it's good to be here.
Bicycling somewhere in outer space.
Yeah, right. On the moon.
Did I miss anybody else? We certainly didn't want to leave Brewster off the piece there, but we have quite a bit to do here today. And if you have to leave by any chance, this working group works by committee. And so feel free to join the committee. And if you haven't heard from your convener, please let me know. We've had a couple changes and we'll go over those in a minute, but let me know or let your convener know even better yet, because we really do work by committee. And we want to start off with Mr. Harry Stone and talking about the ORBA update and the PAS extension.
Okay, thank you very much. As I assume everybody knows at this point, through a fiscal sponsorship agreement with Orsenco, Planning Assistance to States initiative was signed with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to do planning work. And coming out of that, we completed the plan for the Ohio River Basin 2020 to 2025. The Corps did a great job and did it with enough efficiency that there was money left over in our budget to be able to do some what we're calling the phase 2. And so we have the proposals in for that phase 2, and I don't know that we have signed the final agreement yet, but we have every reason to believe it's going to move forward. And there are 3 follow-on studies that are part of that phase 2. One is a study of a study to help do planning for the Ohio River Water Trail. And so this is probably the one of the greatest, with the greatest interest. And so here, what we are doing is we have learned that the Corps of Engineers has helped with the development of other river trails, like the Mississippi River Water Trail, where they have helped with the development, putting in the various kinds of amenities, restrooms and educational things, primitive camping and the like. And so what we're asking is, how did they do that? You know, what went into that? And what are the lessons learned that we really can apply for the Ohio River Water Trail? And as part of that, we also have asked them to take a look at the abandoned and vacant lock houses along within the Ohio River Basin, to see who owns them, how those are being used, and to basically look at whether or not there's some opportunities for us, the Ohio River Basin, to utilize those as access points, as places for outdoor recreation and the like. So that's the first study that we have asked them to do. The second study is to look at what we're calling the Ohio River Basin-wide GIS. And in virtually, I think in each of the goals, there is a GIS component. And so the idea is to have a GIS platform for the Ohio River Basin where we could bring in all kinds of layers, and it would be a repository for data information on pretty much the range of topics you could imagine for the Ohio River Basin. Richard Harrison is leading that effort. Richard, so he is in the process of pulling together the group that will be focused on that from ORBA's perspective and or Sanko's perspective. But the idea here is to see how we can bring together the various federal agencies with their GIS capabilities, their platforms, plus all of the various GIS data in the basin. How do we bring that together? How do we manage it? How do we put that onto a single platform? How do we fund it? How do we keep it up and running and in good stead? So that's kind of the topic of that second PAS study. And then the third PAS study is looking at water resource management. And Orsanko already has done significant work on this. Sam Dinkins has led a committee that's looked at water resources in the Ohio River Basin. And there have been a number of reports that have already been written. But what this is looking to do is is from that point of departure, look at the water resources management approaches that are used other places, that could be used here, and put together a study that would outline strategies and approaches that could be used in the Ohio River Basin to address multi-state water resource management issues. So that's a quick summary of kind of what we're looking to do. Richard, anything you want to add or correct?
Just nothing to add or correct, Harry. very, very well said on a difficult topic. I am serving, Risa is our chair of a subgroup within the Recreation Committee and for work group. And so we've really been focusing on the GIS related to recreation. So I think your overview is really helpful, Harry, and then we'll be providing input as this group comes together. But the first thing is really to get the federal organizations on board, and I think that having the Corps facilitate that will be very helpful. So that's all I had.
And I will add that David will be invited to participate in our regular meetings with the Corps of Engineers. So your voice will be there.
Thank you, Harry. It's a pure pleasure to have that extension, and we just want to give kudos to, once again, the Kentucky Division of Water for initially funding the match, which allows this to go on. You know, and the interesting piece is for me, these abandoned lock houses. There were 52 of them originally. Not all are still standing. Only 2 right now are used for public purposes, and they happen to be only 20 miles apart. The Thomas More Biological Field Station and the Shiloh Outdoor Park run by the park system there. Just sort of interesting, just 20 miles apart, you have 2 of those. So as people sort of, you know, if you know of lock houses near you, or if you have interest in there, please let me know. And any other comments for Harry or questions? Or this, hopefully, they said mid-September this is going to be done, and so this is a short turnaround time.
David, I'm not sure if we introduced Harry as the chair of ORBA, and Harry has been the project manager for the development of the plan for the Ohio River Basin, and so
everyone knows
he is
Harry.
our conductor in a lot of ways.
Everyone knows Harry, and we're very appreciative of him.
Good. I didn't know if everybody knew his role. I'm sure everybody knows him, but Harry's keeping us all straight.
We want to move along. We have a pretty packed agenda. One of our work groups, what we're trying to do each meeting is to have a sort of an in-depth look by somebody or by one work group. And Dr. Perry Thomas with the Funding Water Trails work group has been quite active. And so Perry, I'm going to turn it over to you with this review of the state comprehensive outdoor recreation plans.
Well, thank you, David. And we do have a small team of us planning to describe our review of the SCORPs. How much time do we have, David? Maybe 10 minutes?
How about, I don't know, 15 minutes? If you need
All
more,
right.
we'll cut Russ Barnett's time.
Are you seeing a slide that says review of state comprehensive outdoor recreation plans?
Yes, we do.
Yay. And you'll see that this is a presentation from the Funding Water Trails Committee with a couple of extra adoptees. Our members are Risa, Harry, not with us today are Jerry James, Seth Wheat, and adopted member Billy Bennett. We also have Trish Howison, who's here with us today and is an adopted member for the purposes of this review. Thanks to them for their work on this little project. And we'll see if we can move forward. In this short overview, which is our first time using Google Slides, so there might be a couple of little hiccups here as we master this particular technology. We want to be sure that we underscore why we're doing this review of the SCORPs. We'll highlight each of the states in the Ohio Basin, suggest some commonalities among those SCORPs, describe an example of a water trail consortium if time permits, and then have a short discussion about what opportunities emerge for basin-wide collaboration. As some of you may recall, during our last meeting, we reviewed the Great American Outdoors Act and learned that that served as the basis for the Land and Water Conservation Fund priorities. These SCORPs are the vehicle for developing those priorities by the states. And the states across the Ohio River Basin are gradually transitioning into a 5-year reporting cycle. So you'll see that the reports that we've reviewed represent different time periods as the states work to coordinate their development of these reports and do it on a 5-year cycle. Pennsylvania was reviewed by Trish. So Trish, I'll turn this over to you. Let me know when you want to advance the slide.
All right, so that's a view about, I think it's only about a mile down from the point, the start of the Ohio. That's the West End Bridge and looking downriver. You can go to the next slide. So the current report is for the 2020 to 2024 timeframe. So it was just released. The changes from the previous report were there. They commented that there was not a dramatic shift in attitudes or recreation needs, but a kind of a significant demographic change with a shift to older and more racially diverse populations and a shift away from rural and more toward urban and suburban population. The growth of the elderly population in Pennsylvania from 2010 to 2017 was 20 times the growth of the general population. And that's been a long-standing statistic of Pennsylvania. It's a fairly older population. So that presents different challenges to outdoor recreation providers and the types of recreation that they need and can access and things like that. Pennsylvania has an abundance of resources, outdoor resources. 90% of residents stated in, or 90% of survey respondents said that they participated in at least once this past year in an outdoor activity. So it seems like from the report that there are quite a few residents that are getting outside and enjoying our amenities. It's a water-rich state. We have 86,000 miles of waterways in Pennsylvania, a little over 2,300 miles of water trails, and 19 state and federal scenic rivers. They also have a land and water trail plan that coincides and goes along with the SCORP. It's part of the SCORP. But only 50% of the survey respondents said that they had easy access to a water-based recreation, a pool, a lake, or a river. The priorities that this 5-year plan highlighted are health and wellness, recreation for all, funding and economic development, sustainability, and technology. And there's another one, and I don't remember what it is, but I'm going to touch on health and wellness, recreation for all, and funding, well, 4 of them. Health and wellness, pretty much what we hear from a lot of them. Obesity is rising, chronic illness is rising in the general population. So getting outside and outdoor rec can help those issues. And one of the interesting things in Pennsylvania is that they are really promoting collaboration between physicians and outdoor rec providers. In fact, in the central part of the state, there's a program where doctors actually they write prescriptions for outdoor recreation. It started in 2017. It is, it's led by the Clearwater Conservancy around State College in the Harrisburg area. They had 2,300 participants and 26 doctors involved in the program. So that's something that they want to replicate around the state. Recreation for all, we were talking about GIS data, and in this for this 5-year plan, the Pennsylvania Land Trust Association and the Trust for Public Land actually collaborated on using GIS data to show where the need for access is sufficient and where it's lacking in the state. And Perry, if you click on that link actually just go to the next slide. This is an example of the GIS data, and this shows access to water access points. It was just one of the maps that they got from the GIS data. It also shows access to trailheads. It shows access to public open space, all kinds of different things. But I thought this was interesting because it was focusing on water access points. So that's the state of Pennsylvania. You can go back to the other one, please, Perry. Is 79% of respondents in surveys identified community and regional trail systems as their highest priority for investment. Funding and economic development. One of the big takeaways from the report was that Pennsylvania is a resource-rich state for outdoor recreation, but their funding for marketing and promoting the state lacks or is way behind other states with similar resources. Pennsylvania is located within a day's drive of 40% of the US population, which I thought was interesting. And a large percentage, 80% of Pennsylvanians support increasing state funds at an average cost of $10 to $20 annually per household. So there's interest and there seems to be support for funding. Technology, a couple of things, websites, web-based maps, GIS, advanced gear, and equipment, all those things can help get people outside, help make it safer for them, easier for them, all those kind of things. And social media can be used as a promotional tool. But on the flip side, things like e-bikes, drones, some advanced gear and things like that can also create the need for different types of outdoor recreation access and things like that. And just the amount of screen time can be a detriment to outdoor recreation. Overall, the big ideas were education, educate people about the benefits of getting outside, the economic benefits, health benefits, all those kind of things. Educate providers and consumers of each other and what they can help each other with, and then collaborations. One of the big things that I saw was within municipalities, collaborations between different departments to use, have multi-use parks and things like that. And there was I can't remember what community, Lancaster, I think it was, Pennsylvania. All of the city parks are also part of the stormwater system in the city. So they can combine funds and things like that if they collaborate between departments. There's a lot more. It was a very, very interesting report. I had never looked at it before, didn't even know it existed. So it was a lot of fun to read through it.
Thanks, Trish. We're on to Risa, and Risa, David's given us a little bit of extension. So if you want to be sure to take the time you need, and then I'll summarize the others. And Risa, you might be on mute.
Sorry, guys. I have taken a look at the West Virginia SCORP, and I'm going to kick the can down the road a little bit because they have just finished one and are in the process of seeking approval for the current one, which John McGarity, I think his name was, said should be quite different. But what is in the one that just finished, it was focused on local parks and trails. It was, as the others are, relying on land and water conservation funding. And when I say local parks and trails, it was like city parks, county, infrastructure for young kids, school-age kids, preschool kids, like jungle gyms and those kinds of infrastructure, and city trails. What was striking to me was one of the highest priority amenities for an outdoor trail experience was proximity of a restaurant. So it, for better or for worse, people are thinking about going to the city park and then walking across the street from where their car is parked to go eat. So that's the nature of outdoor recreation. That's really the focus of I'm generalizing a little bit, but the focus of this SCORP. And so what was really stunning to me, I've been going to West Virginia to go kayaking since 1979, and I was shocked that there was virtually nothing about leveraging what is an enormous tourism asset component to the state. There was like no mention of all the whitewater and climbing that's related to that has become the centerpieces for economies in areas like Fayetteville and some other places as well. Fayette County and the county that's just north where the Gauley River is. So it was almost like to me, it was like a parallel universe talking about West Virginia outdoor recreation and the focus on what actually, because I don't want to make it sound like it's not a good thing, but the focus on what's important to those who are residents, as opposed to looking at the opportunity for tourism and encouraging visitors to come to West Virginia. So I'm really curious, and I will follow up with John about the new SCORP that's adopted, because I think that it will be quite different, particularly with the the permanence of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So they're in this comment period, but then as a separate initiative, there was this really wonderful legislation passed, or rule passed. It was submitted in February of last year and approved in April of last year to create a Flatwater Trails Commission, which is interesting. So it's non-whitewater, I guess, but initiated by a leader of the Coal River Water Trail and the Upper Coal River Water Trail. And their duty is to coordinate the efforts to develop non-whitewater trails in this whole state. They're not funded. They're identified as a volunteer organization, but their job is to see what other water trails exist, help document them, educate the public that they exist and what the opportunities there are, identify resources that might be available for projects that those trails need, and kind of being the networking agency. So the folks who are working or volunteering for this just got started. The chair was appointed in December, so they're still pretty new. And this fellow, Bill Curry, is rabid. He is so into this and so excited and so committed. It's really exciting. So we'll see. He's interested in being the lead of whatever can promote essentially river trails in the state of West Virginia. I don't know how that work will be acknowledged in the SCORP, time-wise, if they, if they were, I'm sure they will be, but I don't know how. So it's sort of stay tuned, and as non-outdoors as we're looking at, or as non-river oriented as has been the SCORP that has just completed its tenure, I think there will be more in the future. So stay tuned, and I'd like to report back once we know what's in that new plan.
Thanks, Risa. And that takes us to Ohio, Harry's home state currently, and Harry may chime in as I briefly describe what we learned from Ohio's SCORP. Their current report extends through 2022. They too are going through a turnover in the staff responsible for the SCORP. So the point person has just begun his new job and is learning the ropes and finding out how to create a new SCORP for the future. Their priorities include improvement and expansion of access area infrastructure, both to support broader access for all, as well as to provide additional space for different kinds of access so that motorboats and paddle sports don't have to be launching at the same place, for example. And they're supporting planning and implementation of well-designed and designated water trails across the state, as well as increasing access to boats by encouraging recreational providers and private vendors to expand their fleets and, when possible, to offer free rentals to first-time kayakers or canoers. And Harry, did you want to describe just briefly your experience with that?
Yeah, I volunteer at Cedar Creek State Park, and we provide a free kayaks and canoe and paddleboard classes on the weekends, and or have. We didn't this year, we will next, or this year again. But the people are presented with some safety information, some introduction to how to paddle their canoes and kayaks, and then we take them out on a nature excursion, pointing out the natural amenities of the lakes, and that's all free. And we will typically do about 3 groups in a morning, and I think our record is 99 boats out in those 3 groups.
Thank you, Harry. In Kentucky, as I said, we don't have Billy and Jerry with us. They're the ones that reviewed Kentucky's plan. I'll just mention briefly that the Kentucky report is a relatively new one. This one goes till 2025, divided into 6 chapters, 1 dedicated to wetlands. It describes an extensive survey and the results of a survey of Kentucky's attitudes and beliefs. Billy's got a good sense of that and could bring that to future discussions. This particular image in this picture is our team member, Jerry James. So some of you may recognize him on his stand-up paddleboard there. And I did want to mention that in Kentucky, we are encouraging practices like the one Trish mentioned, the integration of stormwater management into a park system. That's consistent with nature-based solutions, and in Kentucky we're working on an addendum to the Kentucky Hazard Mitigation Plan that would encourage nature-based solutions and make them eligible for funding through FEMA as well as through EPA 319 funds. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. In Indiana, the SCORP has traditionally had an emphasis on pedestrian trails. When I searched for water trails in Indiana, a bunch of hiking trails along rivers came up, which is wonderful, but they've not included water trails in their SCORP officially. They do have a team that's focusing in on those and has developed a digital map of paddle access points and places where people can get support for paddling. They also have Indiana's Greenways Foundation. Are any of you involved with this foundation? Is anyone on this call involved with them? Looks like a really interesting model for us to investigate further. They run Trail Town workshops in conjunction with a national group, the trailtowns.org, which has its roots in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Maryland. and focus on revitalizing rural communities based with a focus on trails. And this is the digital guide of where to paddle in Indiana that's available now. And they point to the Ohio River Recreation Digital Guide, and I expect we could point to them if we don't already. Tennessee, again, they are in the midst of a turnover in staffing for their plan, and we look forward to following up with them. I'll just point out that they take an integrated approach to use of their water trails for both promoting water quality protection and having people take personal responsibility for their actions. So commonalities, as we've gone through this, you may have noticed that all the plans emphasized health benefits. There's a real focus on increasing access for everyone, making sure that everyone has a place that's close by for outdoor recreation, including water trails, and then connecting towns, supporting the economy through tourism. And we'd hoped to have discussion, but I think we're kind of short on time. What I would suggest is that we mull over the questions that have come up as we've been going through these reviews. Again, the question that David posed at the beginning, Harry reminded us of as we reviewed these in a committee, how can we promote an understanding that we're all in the same basin? And conversely, what's the opportunity here for basin-wide collaboration in promoting some of these commonalities across the plans?
Perry, maybe people could put any comments in the chat. It has been, a couple people have put comments in there and we saved the chat. And so if you noticed other commonalities or have ideas that our group might recommend for all of the different SCORP writers, one of the interesting projects was identifying who it is. And as Perry mentioned, it's a fluid group of people. There's some that have been there for 20 years and there's some that are brand new to it. And so I just wanted to thank Perry and all of the folks for, coordinating and pulling together. Are there any needs that you saw that were clearly identified in all of them that we could focus on as a group that maybe identify some sources of support for them? Well, without any other discussion, does anybody have any comments or thoughts? Or I asked people to look at their SCORP. Did anything not get pulled out that could have get pulled out during this discussion?
I think one of the interesting things is that you listen to the focus area of states, it creates the kind of outlines and should help us focus on some of the difficulties that we might have of focusing on greenways and blue trails. So you have some states that their focus isn't on streams at all. You've got other states their focus isn't on trails at all. It's more access to water. And yet we're going to be trying to then not only convince them that we're all in the Ohio River basin, but you have a lot of different approaches in each of these states. My experience with the SCORPs is that they've had sometimes very little impact on how water and land conservation resources were spent. But it's a requirement to get those funds to do these plans. So that's kind of why West Virginia takes an approach of, we don't have any staff, we have no funds, and yet the challenge will be for us, well, how do we work with that. Now, in my career, I've experienced the same thing with West Virginia, and I'm sure Richard is constantly aware of this also. They have so few funds there that when I wanted to work for the Commonwealth of Kentucky to work with West Virginia on a study that I wanted to be conducted, I literally had to give West Virginia a state of Kentucky grant so they could hire somebody so I could talk to somebody. And so that's some of the challenges that I hear from your report, Perry and et al., of kind of the SCORP, that they all have a different approach, and yet we're going to be trying to convince them that we want them to focus on one or two areas, and they might not be able or willing to do that.
How about the other Russ? Looks like you have a comment, the other Russ. You've worked with all these people. What do you think?
It's always a challenge. Each state has its own priorities, and there is no organization or effort out there to try and bring them all to a single focus. So I think we're looking at a multi-state approach with the basin, Ohio River Basin. We've got challenges accordingly. So I don't have any great recommendations for the group other than continue to work with what we have and knowledge and see where we can interject some ideas and seeds of new information to help bring it into the future so they're a little more compliant with each other. That's all I can offer.
I thought it was interesting that Trish had said in your presentation on the PA SCORP that like you didn't even know until you had this assignment that there was a SCORP to investigate, which is interesting to me because it's a decree, I'm not sure, that every 5 years there will be another one. So like every 5 years there's a press release that obviously the state of Pennsylvania, the DCNR is not doing a good job of getting out, which they themselves are aware of since part of the SCORP was promotion needs to increase. But I think that that's telling that probably most of the entities that are creating the SCORPs are not doing a good job of sharing what they are finding or what their priorities are with their citizens or with other entities creating SCORPs. So maybe something that we could do as a group of people that are interested in this interstate organization is to just talk to the that we are working with in our own states to make even like a very loose network of SCORP creating, and recreation interested organizations statewide, that we don't expect anything of these people, but at least they are aware of who is doing work in other places that is, literally connected to each other. When we were working on trails, the Pennsylvania Environmental Council works on trail networks regionally, but a couple of years ago we started to reach out to regional trail networks across the country, across the United States. So now yearly we have a gathering of a national group of local trail networks. Like you're saying, Russ, too, this might not be possible because of the different priorities, or Russ one, because of the funding that is different for each state. So then people might not be able to send staff members to a gathering, but if there was an opportunity to know at least who was doing the work in other places, maybe that's something that this group of people could take on.
Interesting, Lizzie, in addition to promoting the existence of SCORPs, all of the SCORPs during the development phase have opportunities for input. And most state agencies encourage that. They want to have more people. And it's the challenge to get people up to snuff to put up with the bureaucracy to have that input. And so how we could promote both an understanding of the value of them, and yes, maybe paperwork bureaucracy is there, and but it is one avenue of coordination.
Well, and it was mentioned in the PA SCORP as well, that even though the public seems to be in favor of the funds being spent, and there are some funds there, That's my phone. The funding still doesn't come through. It gets funneled off to other projects by other groups and things like that. And the education of the economic benefits, people they'll articulate that they want to be outside and they enjoy using outdoor resources and things like that, but they don't really understand the economic benefit to their community, the tax-based benefits and things like that. So it seems to me numbers would speak volumes. If we could educate people on the economic benefits in true numbers, that would be a big help.
I am going to cut this conversation off unless if somebody has something burning to say. I wish to thank Perry and all of the committee for their hard work in doing this. All of the pieces, as well as all the SCORPs, are up on the Google page that RISA created. Their sort of individual analysis of each one is there as well. And so we look forward to the future work of this committee, because it is one of those collaborative deals that I think could have potential for more coordination down the road from the federal government. So,
Dave, if I could interrupt you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Even though Russ Clark and I might have come across as negative, it also gives us an opportunity. And for me, the opportunity is all of these SCORPs are going to be renewed in about 5 years, which gives us about 5 years to create the vision of what could occur. And part of the advantage of having pretty weak SCORP development, and that's why people in this and all of these states are probably very unaware of what's going on, and they're required to do these public outreaches as part of the SCORP process, gives us an opportunity to present that vision. And if you present a vision and you're on a state commission and you really don't know, well, what should I be doing? Sometimes that vision can be fill that void for them. And that's what I hope that we can do, is create that vision so that we can get people talking about it, and at least on paper have then the support from the states in the basin.
You know, the interesting thing is they're all different times. There's several of them in development right now. And so they're not a consistent schedule.
They're pretty much.
I just want to thank everyone for your input here. The Funding Water Trails Committee will take it all into consideration and come back with next steps. Thank you.
Just to move along a bit quickly, we are a little bit out of time almost, but I wanted to introduce Austin Render. And Austin is a cyclist, and you know, the name of our crew is really nature-based recreation. And there's people who recreate on the land as well as on the water. And Austin has done some interesting analysis of long distance trails. And so Austin, why don't you introduce yourself? And he has a couple slides.
Sure, thank you, David. My name is Austin Render. I live in Jeffersonville, Indiana. In addition to being an avid cyclist, I run a 3-day bike tour of the bourbon distilleries in Kentucky. So it's a bike tour by day and a bourbon festival by night. And we've seen a lot of success with that. I've been a professional international bike guide on and off over the years, and now just kind of the resident bike guy for a number of different things. So I've compiled a list of numerous bike routes throughout the Ohio River Basin. And this is not a comprehensive list. It's a high-level approach. I started with kind of the low-hanging fruit, that being the Adventure Cycling Association and the U.S. Bicycle Route Systems. These are national bike routes that on the coast, some are north to south, border to border, etc. So we'll start with the Adventure Cycling Association. And Here I identified 7 different routes with a couple of different spur options. These are 7 routes that are in 9 different Ohio River Basin states. You'll notice there's a note at the bottom of that map there. It says that essentially route distances are listed as totals, not indicative of the mileage within the Ohio River Basin state. So for example, the Northern Tier, number 1, that pink route, it's 4,000, almost 4,300 miles long, and it just kind of scrapes the top of Indiana. But nevertheless, that's a very popular coast-to-coast route that passes through portions of the ORB. The Transamerica number 2 there, that's an even more popular route coast-to-coast, and that goes through Virginia, Kentucky, and a bit of Illinois as well, amongst others. The Underground Railroad is a popular one that is actually just a couple blocks away from where I'm at now along the Ohio River. Moving along quickly. So the US bicycle route system, similar, 7 routes in 11 different states here. The mileage here is per state. I've summed them together per state, but some of these routes exist outside of the Ohio River Basin, but they're within the state that's within the Ohio River Basin, if that makes sense. So again, this is not comprehensive, but these are just kind of those most popular high-level national bike routes that are very popular, especially in the summer months for biking. But we know that other state and local bike routes exist, and essentially reaching out to everyone on this board, everyone on this call today to help document those that are in your area, whether that's something like we have here in Louisville with the Louisville Loop and the Parklands. You know, if it's a bicycle route that that you know it's designated, it's established, it's popular, I'd like to know about it. I'm compiling a list of all of those per state throughout the ORB, so you can reach me there at austin_render@yahoo.com. Just include a name of that route, a brief description, and if you can find a route or a link like on Ride with GPS or Strava, it'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Austin also has a Excel spreadsheet going if you wanted to share that with each state listed in the basin. We've been so focused on water, but when you really think about it, a lot of these trails go along our rivers and streams, and it's the bottom line is there's a lot of people bicycling. So if we want to think about the outdoor recreation, including bicycling, is an interesting process. So, if you want to get that file, there will be posted on the RISA Google page for our working group. Thank you there, Austin. We're now on our committee reports, and we have lots of committees. We have about 5 minutes left, and there's 7 committees. The committee that I know that has been the most active, really, or active, is the Water Trails, the digital guide piece, and Risa and David are here. And so, Risa, do you want to talk through a little bit about what you've done? And
I think the best way to summarize it is that we have looked at the opportunity to merge or align multiple existing really great databases, and have stepped back from that because there are a handful of great recreation databases. There are lots of water trails that are not included in them. And the thought of trying to integrate the databases and add what's missing is like a nightmare. So, or so complicated, it's almost like difficult to know where you start. So what we've decided is to use the Ohio River Recreation Database as kind of the core, and then view other water trails data or databases of water trails as kind of add-ons. So if you could envision seeing the Ohio River Recreation Water Trail with dots or points or like sticky notes with the other resources that exist, and create a composite of just that without trying to combine anything. And then use that as a way to understand what we have available. And then use that as the, because that will be an exercise that isn't that difficult, but use that as the basis for getting funding to do the next step, which would be some kind of integration. A really important group of data, if you will, was what, based on what Russ did, to put together what exists for water trails in the Ohio River Basin, and Bridget has put those in a GIS map. So she's taken it that next step. We're going to go through what all that data is. All we see is like one map with a bunch of squiggles on it. We don't really know what's inside of each of those lines yet. So she's going to take us through so we understand what we have before we decide what to do with it. And Richard, maybe you can help me out here. But then the next level that Harry mentioned of integrating all potential GIS data relevant to the Ohio River Basin, which is beyond recreation, that's like nightmare number 2. I mean, because it's so big, it's sort of hard for anybody to get their hands around it. And so I think we still need to discuss that, because we're still trying to figure out what the recreation component of that would be, because it all by itself is a lot. So we're getting there, but I think that the chunking that we're doing and the lumping, splitting is first use Ohio River, the Ohio River Recreation database, that data that David is the master of, and then add to that instead of trying to merge all these disparate databases that have different attributes. So that's kind of where we are. It's still a little bit of a mess, but we're figuring it out, and we're headed in the right direction, I think. And I'd like to be able to speak to the group to explain a little bit more what we're talking about, either next time, David, because we'll.
Risa, if your committee wants to be on for next week or next month, that would be great to have an analysis of the GIS potentials for understanding recreational potential in our basin. You're on. And we certainly want to give a shout out to Orosenko and to Bridget for her work with that. It's a good thing, and it just makes the work that David Rudder's done over the time. And as you get this all organized, Daniel, who's also an Orosenko guy, would love to figure out how to build fishing into all of this. So, we have bicycling, fishing, and paddle sports.
Right, and just to finish
stuff.
Yeah, I want to thank Bridget, Richard, Brewster's not here, Vic, Brad also is on the committee for contributing, because we sort of have gone around the block and back around again to develop a kind of a strategy.
Brewster's on. I see his phone down there.
Oh, that's right. There he is. Thank you, Brewster.
He's not bicycling anymore.
There he is.
Oh, he still is. Oh.
I'm going over a bridge. Dangerous.
Unless if somebody else has another committee that they would like to really go through, I'm going to certainly ask people to send me notes of what they're doing. But I want to be respectful of people's time. Is there anything else any other committee would like to delve into? Well, with that, I'm going to introduce this young woman over here, Lisa Freeman. That's our next item, number 7, and it's called the Ohio River Discussion Series. And this is a new webinar series that, well, it's continuation from the Ohio River Recreation Trail, but ORBA and Orosenko and FOR, the Foundation for Our Ohio River Education, have merged together and have promoting a series of webinars. The first one is called Recreational Safety on the Ohio River, and one of the panelists is Lisa. Lisa, do you want to give a promotional piece of the core and safety? This is on the 16th. Register.
That's right. I'm still working on getting things together, but I'll be specifically covering boating safety around the locks and dams, which is always a pertinent topic. But I guess that's all I have to say for the moment.
Sounds great, and it's a perfect topic for, here in Louisville, we've had a terrible accident and we still have a missing kayaker. It's been about a week ago, and it's right around the McAlpin Pool. And so it's going to be working with the U.S. Coast Guard and the Port of Cincinnati, and Jerry Schulte is coordinating this webinar. We'll have other topics down the road. Each one of these working groups are going to have an opportunity to present, but if any of us have a desire to share some of what we're working on, one of the suggestions is to try to get all of the 9 state SCORP writers in our committee and to have a webinar on the state outdoor recreation plans and feature each state person. So anyway, that's going on. I sent the registration. Tomorrow morning, if you are not aware, the Tennessee Riverline, Brad Collette is having their conference. It starts tomorrow and goes on till Thursday. It is an amazing website that they put together, one of the best virtual conferences I've seen. Probably 40 different vignettes of the river towns and the different organizations involved. We want to thank Harry Stone for doing one on Orba and this Ohio River Recreation Plan, or on the Ohio River Basin Plan. So you did a great job for that. Final comments is our last thing. You know, we've spent a little bit more time. Victor, you want us to start off at the top? Any thoughts, anything you're going to be working on over this next month? Anything you're on, Victor? Put you on the spot.
No, nothing in particular. We're gonna be getting out to the islands and doing a little bit of habitat work. We're gonna be putting a machine out on Buckley Island and start clearing brush to restore bottomland hardwood forest on one of our islands. So that's gonna be our big project this probably in the next month.
You know, an interesting thing, Victor, is this PAS extension project. When they're going to be looking at all of the locks and dams, they've said that they would also be interested in working with people to collect information on all the islands in the Ohio River beyond the wildlife refuge. So get an accurate count and size and condition of every island and the public use potential of every island. So maybe we'll draft you to sort of help think about islands. Perry, any comments, any thoughts?
Just the next project of the Funding Water Trails Committee is to compile a set of success stories describing water trails that have worked well across the basin. So you might look for a message from me inviting you to contribute.
Thank you. Wes Clark, any final observations?
No, I'm just really excited about the potential of all this. The aspect when you stop and think about the magnitude of the Ohio River Basin, how many rivers, how many streams are within that, how many paddling opportunities there are. And for this organization to basically come together and create a one-stop shop where you can find all the information related to outdoor recreation in this basin will be a tremendous asset to the public. So my hat's off to everybody's effort. I think that the end goal here of being that umbrella organization that provides the resource data will be fantastic.
And what's one thing you're going to do this next month there for this project?
I'm going to reach out to some other groups that might be able to help us with this process.
Risa.
Well, I'm going to focus on the work of the committee that I chair for us to be able to distill all these things that we've been talking around to present them, because that exercise will force us to make sense to ourselves with not just in general what we want to do, but sort of our path forward.
Lizzie.
I just realized I'm late for another call that I have to jump off onto. I I'm going to reach out to my contact at the Pennsylvania DCNR who works with water trails and see her appetite for working with other states and other organizations that are doing this work in other places to see what type of interest there is in making an intrastate connection, like a loose network.
Yeah, I think your role is perfect for helping identify other people in states to do the synergistic work. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to jump off now. Sorry, I just realized how late it was.
My fault for running long. Austin, any final thoughts?
Well, just kind of reiterate what I said earlier. Russ talked about the magnitude of the Ohio River Basin, and there's almost innumerable mileage of roads, of actual off-road trails as well, and would love to see those become a part of this planning and planning for recreation in the future. So appreciate everyone's help and outreach on that.
Mr. Stone.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to mayors and looking at how we can better engage with the river cities of the basin. And so part of what I'll be communicating is what we have in the plan with respect to water-based recreation. So that's what I'll be up to.
Trish?
I reached out to Lizzie in my work on the SCORP, and we're going to try and have a conversation later this week. And then Renee, I'm sorry, as well through this meeting today reached out. So I'm get together with those ladies and do a deeper dive into water trails, specifically in Pennsylvania. And one other comment I wanted to make from the beginning, David, when you were talking about old locks and dams, I think there's another one I think it's in Ravenswood, West Virginia, that's a public park.
Okay.
I have to look at my notes. There's one I stayed at last summer on my trip down the Ohio. That was an old lock and dam. That's a city park now.
Please send it.
I think it was Ravenswood, but I'll look.
Trish has a good life. She gets to paddle a lot and did the whole length of the Ohio River, What a pleasure. Daniel, any observations or thoughts of how you think you might be involved?
I have a few ideas regarding how we could outline some features of the river that have natural fish attracting ability. And I just plan to continue to work with the Recreation Committee and Bridget and everybody else to see how we can put that together in a way that allows for a seamless incorporation.
Sounds great. Richard, do you have 30 seconds or less?
I apparently do have 30 seconds or less. So two goals. I want to work with Danny and Bridget to come to our next meeting with RISA and maybe lay out a little pilot area of how we could pull different river trails in together. And then two, I want to follow the money. I do not understand the flow of money from Congress to SCORPs to land and water conservation funds. And I think we need to really understand that to answer RISA's question, what's in it for the individual SCORPs? I think it's got to be money.
You could ask Mr. Fitzpatrick. He could probably, Mr. Fitz could help you with that answer. Right? He's been involved locally with it. Brewster Rhodes.
Good meeting, by the way. I think there are two constituencies, at least, that we need to figure out how to connect better with, and one is the fishing community, and Danny's already on top of that to some extent, which sounds great, but there's so many resources. Secondly, the power boating community, and there's a lot of money and a lot of people who have boats, and they're always looking for places to go in their boats, and it's a huge constituency that I need to spend more time trying to connect to what we're doing.
And I think the last, which hasn't really said much and is brand new to this committee, and that is Renee. Renee, are you on still?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. I'm
Who
really
are you,
new.
Renee?
I'm just learning. So I'm very happy to have been able to listen.
All right. Well, as I've said, the work of this group is really done by committees. This is a time for sharing and for, I like to think it's really about learning. you know, it's a professional development opportunity for all of us, and it's a collegial support group. And so each time we just wanted to thank the Funding Water Group again for putting themselves out and doing such. And you set the bar high for this GIS techno nerd folks who are up next. I did record this. I'll post that recording whenever I get it on YouTube. I wish to thank everybody. If you haven't been meeting with your committee, follow up with people and say, what's the deal? Thank you very much, unless if there's anything else for the good of the order. Our next meeting is February 23rd at 4 o'clock.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye. Thank you.